My name's Romani, and today we're taking a look at a game that's an arcade game, but not? What? Yeah, did you know that some arcade games aren't actually on the arcade? As in, not in big old box type thingies in a smelly smoky room? Yeah, me neither. Sometimes they're at home on the couch, which, depending on where you live, might also be a smelly smoky room. The game we're taking a look at today is called Girly Garden on the Sega SG-1000. Yeah, I've never heard of it either. The game's called Girly Garden because it's a game where you play as a girl, and you're in a garden with lots of flowers, and there's this little boy you rather fancy because he's a little cutie, and you want him to give you the smoochy goochie boochie before he goes and smoochy goochie boochie some other girl. And the only way to do that is to prove your love to him by running around collecting flowers and avoiding hungry bears. Jesus Christ, that's horrifying. This game's noticeable because it was the first game made by Yuji Naka, who would later go on to make Kniggets into Dreams and some other game called Soy Boy the Hedge. I never heard of that one personally, looks kinda good though. The story goes that Yuji Naka began working at Sega, and on his first day his boss was like, hey, why don't you try making a game for little girls as a way to learn how to make games and codes and such, and if you do a good job, I'll give you a gold star and a pat on the back. And Yuji Naka was all like, cool, can I make it a horror game? Wait, what?
Can I make it a horror game?
And so, he did. Around this time, Yuji Naka's co-worker Yoshi Kawasaki came in to help Mr. Haki out, and after a few months of development, the higher-ups at Sega greenlit the project for a full retail release, and the game has gone down in history as one of the games on the system. Which isn't really saying much because nobody knows what the heck this thing is, but that's okay because it's a pretty awesome little game anyway. Each level has you playing as a young girl Paprika with the goal of collecting 10 flowers before your boyfriend gets fed up with you and goes over to that homewrecker across the street. However, your boyfriend, he's a picky son of bee and will only accept 10 of the finest flowers in the land, meaning that you can only pick the flowers that are fully in bloom, as these are the only ones that will count towards your total. As you play, the flowers will bloom and go through their whole life cycle right before your eyes, from green little buds to dinky little flower petals to full-on bloom and a wilted inky mess. Ew, gross! You still get points for picking the immature flowers, but not that much, so you might as well not even bother, and if you pick up a wilted Wilma, you'll lose half your flowers you've currently collected, which makes no sense at all, but hey, that's Vigigames. Once you get 10 flowers, you need to go to your boyfriend's house and deliver them because in addition to being a picky SOB, he's also a lazy little poop. Wait, he's a two-timer, a lazy bones, and he only accepts 10 of the finest flowers? Girl, I do not understand what you see in that boy. You're a strong, independent woman who don't need no man, and you go up against bears every single day. What does he do? Sit on his butt and look at pretty girls? What a ass! Which brings me to my next point. Holy butts are there a lot of bears. The bears will chase you around looking for their next meal as you innocently try to pick flowers for your loser boyfriend, and if they catch you, you'll lose a life in addition to half of your flowers, though you do get to start right back where you died, so I guess that's nice. However, you're a smart girl, which is why you brought some honey with you, which you can use to distract the bears and go about your merry business, but be careful because you only start with 5 honeys and you only get an additional honey at the end of every level. But don't worry too much because you also have the help of a friendly little bee who will fly around as you play and drop helpful items down to you, like fruit and extra lives and whatever this thing is. He dropped one of these off in my house earlier today, and I think I'm gonna turn it into a coffee table because that'd be pretty neat. This is one of those games that continues to get harder the more you play it by increasing the speed at which the bears move as well as the speed of the flowers going through their life cycles, and after about 10 or so levels it gets so ridiculously difficult that you'll probably just end up dying. Doesn't really seem like this game's very well balanced, but for whatever reason, I can't seem to put it down. Just look at my thumbs. Call a doctor, it hurts so bad. Every 2 levels, you also go to a bonus stage where you have to jump over 20 bears, and if you do, you'll get some even more smoochy goochie boochie from Mr. Faithful himself. Gee whiz, he must be like the only boy in a 100-mile radius if you're going to this much trouble. Woof. These levels can be kinda tricky as the bears often come at you in multiples and in different patterns, meaning that sometimes you have to get creative with your jumps, like bouncing off the edge of the screen to gain a little extra distance. I'm not really sure how that works, but if it means you don't get eaten by hungry bears, I'm all for it. Technically speaking, Girly Garden is one of the most technically impressive games on the system and featured a lot of, features that were really hard to implement on the primitive hardware of the SG-1000, such as scrolling background layers like the background layer and the other background layer, in addition to animating bears, which are actually also part of the background layer. That's just confusing. The large sprites in the bonus stages are also pretty impressive, as this sort of thing was practically unheard of on 8-bit systems of the time, but through the use of black magic and insider trading, Yuji Naka was able to make it work. Just don't get caught, Mr. Haki! Oh, oops. Either way, Girly Garden is a heck of a nice little game to play, and while it may not technically be an arcade game, it's still the kind of game that I love very much, which is why I'm gonna give it 5 hungry little bears out of 5. My name's Romani, and this has been Mini Arcade. Bye! Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows but Jesus.